Welcome back to my channel. And if you are visiting this space for the first time, you are also highly welcome. In this lecture, we'll be looking at the innervations of the scalp. I have done a part 1 and part 2 lectures on the scalp, where I discussed about the layers of the scalp and also the arterial and venous drainage of the scalp. If you've not checked those lectures, please kindly go and do so as to keep yourself updated. But for the purpose of this class, we would be limiting these to just the innervations of the scalp. So ride on with me as I unfold the different branches that are seen to give innervations to the scalp. So in studying the innervations of the scalp, we would be dividing the innervations of the scalp into 2 broad classes. We have the sensory innervation. This sensory innervation, of course, is known to carry sensory impulses and, of course, interpret them and analyze them. And this is carried by 8 different branches from both the trigeminal nerve and also the cervical spinal nerves. We would see how these 2 nerves contribute to the sensory innervations of the scalp as we go through with this lecture. But just for us to know that we have 8 of these branches giving sensory innervations to the scalp. Then the second class of innervation is the motor innervation, and this is carried solely by the facial nerve. The facial nerve is the 7th cranial nerve to carry motor stimulations of the scalp. So going further on the sensory innervation, if we try to divide the scalp into 2 along the median plane, we have one half on the right side and we have another half on the left side. Also further dividing one side of the scalp using the auricle as a landmark. This is the configuration of the side of the scalp using this image at the central part. This is where we have the auricle. This is the ear. So the kind of presentation that is seen here, whereby a region of the scalp is seen to be located anterior to the auricle, and also another region is seen to be located behind the auricle. This kind of presentation is also seen on the other side. And this is the landmark we'll be using to study the innervations of the scalp. So going further on the sensory innervation, we already established that we have 8 branches giving sensory innervations to the scalp. And these 8 branches are from 2 major nerves. These are the trigeminal nerve, which is the 5th cranial nerve, and also the cervical spinal nerves. These cervical spinal nerves are limited to just the C2 and C3 cervical spinal nerves. We know that we have cervical spinal nerves ranging from C1 to C8, but the specific region that is responsible for supplying sensory innervations to the scalp is limited to just the C2 and the C3 cervical spinal nerve. So dividing this further using the auricle as a landmark, we have a region of the scalp that is located anterior to the auricle, as we've said before, and also another region that is located behind the auricle. We said that this presentation as seen on this side is also seen on the other side. So going further on the sensory innervation, we have a region that is located anterior to the auricle. And this, of course, is supplied by 4 branches from the 8 that we initially highlighted as the sensory innervations of the scalp. Remember, we said that the sensory innervations of the scalp is supplied by 8 branches from both the trigeminal and also the cervical spinal nerves, although limited to C2 and C3 spinal nerves. So for the anterior region of the auricle, the scalp that is located anteriorly to the auricle, we have 4 branches from these 8 branches giving sensory innervations to this region. And this is supplied by the trigeminal nerves. So we have the trigeminal nerves at this region in the anterior part of the auricle giving 4 branches. And these are the 4 branches highlighted here. And you see it's supplying the region of the scalp that is located anterior to the auricle. So going behind at the posterior region of the auricle, we also have 4 branches from the 8 branches that we initially highlighted from the sensory innervations of the scalp at this upper region. And this is supplied by branches from the cervical spinal nerve, which include C2 and C3 cervical spinal nerves. So you see these branches also at the posterior region of the auricle. We have 4 of these branches emerging from the cervical spinal nerve, also giving sensory innervation to the region of the scalp that is located behind the auricle. So you can see that using the auricle as a landmark, the anterior part is supplied by 4 branches from the trigeminal nerve. Then we have the scalp at the posterior region of the auricle, being supplied by 4 branches from the cervical spinal nerve. And this, of course, is limited to C2 and C3 spinal nerves. So you can see how these different branches are taking up their spaces within the region of the scalp. So anteriorly, we have branches from the trigeminal nerve, while posteriorly, we have branches from the cervical spinal nerve, both giving sensory innervations of the scalp. And of course, as we have this presentation here, we'll also be seeing this kind of presentation on the other side. So going to the motor innervation, and this is carried solely by the facial nerve. The facial nerve is the 7th cranial nerve. So we have different branches of the facial nerve, of course, giving motor innervations to the scalp. As we also use the auricle as a landmark for the sensory innervation, we would also be using the auricle as a landmark for the motor innervation. So anterior to the auricle, we have one branch from the facial nerve, and this is the temporal branch of the facial nerve. This is what is highlighted here in red. You see it anteriorly. It supplies motor innervations to the scalp in the anterior part of the auricle. This is where we have the auricle. This is the anterior region. So you have the temporal branch of the facial nerve giving motor innervation to the scalp in the anterior part of the auricle. Then behind the auricle, of course, the region of the scalp that is located behind the auricle, it also has a branch from the facial nerve. And this is the posterior auricular branch. So we have the posterior auricular branch here highlighted in green, also from the facial nerve, giving motor innervations to the posterior region of the scalp. Of course, the region that is located behind the auricle. So as we see in the sensory innervation, so also we see in the motor innervation. But for the sensory innervation, we have 4 branches in the anterior part of the auricle, and we have 4 branches behind the auricle. While in the motor innervation, we have a branch from the facial nerve that is seen to supply the anterior region of the scalp. And we also have another branch from the same facial nerve giving off motor innervation, posterior region of the scalp that is located behind the auricle. So this is like a summary slide of the innervations of the scalp. We said that the innervations of the scalp is broadly divided into the sensory innervation and the motor innervation. And of course, using the auricle as a landmark on one side, we said that this kind of presentation is also seen on the other side. For the anterior part of the auricle, for the sensory innervation, we have branches from the trigeminal nerve supplying the anterior region and branches from the cervical spinal nerve supplying the posterior region. While for the motor innervation, we have the facial nerve. So we have 2 branches from the facial nerve. One branch will supply the anterior region of the scalp that is located in front of the auricle. Then the other branch of the facial nerve will be supplying the posterior region of the scalp that is located behind the auricle. So this is what is presented in this slide. And this, of course, can be used as a summary slide in studying the innervations of the scalp. So let's try and go further to dwell on each of the branches to see how the part, and of course, the specific regions of the scalp that they are seen to innervate. So going to the sensory innervation, we already said that the sensory innervations of the scalp is supplied by 8 branches. We have 4 branches in the anterior part, and we have 4 branches in the posterior part. Using the auricle as the landmark, we said that this presentation will also be seen on the other side. So driving in on the anterior branches that supply the anterior region of the scalp, that is the region that is located anterior to the auricle. We say we have 4 of these branches. And these branches are from the trigeminal nerve. We know that the trigeminal nerve is the 5th cranial nerve. And this is the trigeminal nerve here, highlighted in red. We know that the trigeminal nerve has 3 subdivisions. We have the ophthalmic branch here that is highlighted in black. We have the maxillary branch here that is highlighted in green. Then we have the last branch here that is highlighted in blue. This is the mandibular branch of the trigeminal nerve. So these are the 3 branches of the trigeminal nerve. And of course, the 4 branches that seem to supply the anterior region of the scalp that is located in front of the auricle or anterior to the auricle are branches from the different sub-branches of the trigeminal nerve. So we see how these branches emerge from the different sub-branches of the trigeminal nerve. The first branch that will be giving sensory innervations to the region of the scalp that is located anterior to the auricle, we have the supratrochlear nerve. The supratrochlear nerve is a branch of the frontal nerve. This is the frontal nerve here, highlighted in yellow. The frontal nerve is a sub-branch of the ophthalmic, and of course, it gives off the supratrochlear nerve. This is the supratrochlear nerve here, highlighted in blue. And you see it supplying the anterior medial region of the scalp. If we try to divide it into two halves along the median plane, you have the anterior medial side, which is, of course, is the anterior part, but close to the medial plane. So this region is supplied by the supratrochlear nerve. And of course, we know the supratrochlear nerve is a branch from the frontal nerve, which branches from the ophthalmic. And the ophthalmic is a branch from the trigeminal nerve. And this, of course, will be giving supply to the anterior medial region of the scalp. So it's supplying the anterior part, but the region of the anterior part that it supplies is close to the medial plane. Then the second branch is the supraorbital nerve. This is the supraorbital nerve here, highlighted in dotted green. The supraorbital nerve is also a branch from the frontal nerve, which of course is the branch from the ophthalmic that branches from the trigeminal nerve. So this supraorbital nerve will be supplying the anterior lateral region of the scalp. This is the region where we have the auricle, and the entire region from this midline region to this side is where we have the anterior region of the scalp that is located anterior to the auricle. So if the supratrochlear is supplying the anterior medial region, the supraorbital will be supplying the anterior lateral region. So that's the position that it takes in terms of the sensory innervations of the scalp. So we have the supraorbital supplying the anterior lateral region because it's on the anterior side, but of course it's on the lateral side of the anterior region of the scalp. These two regions are seen to be located anterior to the auricle because this is what is used as the landmark. Then we have two other branches also emerging from the trigeminal, but are not branches from the ophthalmic nerve. So let's drive further to see where these branches emerge from. So we have the third branch, and this is the zygomaticotemporal nerve. This zygomaticotemporal nerve is a branch from the maxillary nerve, which of course is the second branch of the trigeminal. Remember when we tried to highlight the trigeminal nerve, we highlighted in red, we said that it has three branches. It has the ophthalmic nerve, it has the maxillary nerve, and it has the mandibular branch. So the maxillary branch of the trigeminal nerve is seen to give up the zygomaticotemporal nerve here that is highlighted here. And this, of course, is seen to supply the temple. This is where we have the temple. So the skin around this region is giving sensory innervation by the zygomaticotemporal nerve, which of course is the branch from the maxillary nerve. And we know that the maxillary nerve is the second branch of the trigeminal nerve. So the last branch, because we already highlighted that we have four branches giving sensory innervations to the region of the scalp that is located anterior to the auricle. We already highlighted three branches. So the last branch definitely will be coming from the mandibular branch of the trigeminal nerve, and this is the auriculotemporal nerve. This is what is highlighted here in this region, and you see it emerging from the mandibular nerve, which of course is a branch of the trigeminal nerve, and you see it ascending up to supply the anterior superior part of the auricle. This is where we have the auricle. So the anterior superior part, which means the anterior upper part of the auricle, is where it gives sensory innervations to. And remember that the mandibular branch of the trigeminal nerve has both sensory and also motor roots. So it is the sensory component of the mandibular branch that of course gives the auriculotemporal nerve that is seen to supply the sensory innervation of the anterior superior part of the auricle. And you see these four branches as they are presented in this image. You see that they give sensory innervation to the region of the scalp that is located anterior to the auricle. And of course, these branches are from the different sub-branches of the trigeminal nerve. As we've highlighted here, we said that the supratrochlear and the supraorbital are branches from the ophthalmic, while the zygomaticotemporal nerve is from the maxillary nerve. Then the last nerve that is seen to give sensory innervation to the region of the scalp that is seen anterior to the auricle is the auriculotemporal nerve. And this, of course, is the branch from the mandibular nerve. And we already know that the ophthalmic and the maxillary nerve are solely sensory nerve, while the mandibular nerve has a sensory and motor component. So it is the sensory component of the mandibular nerve that is seen to give off the auriculotemporal nerve, to give a sensory innervation to the region of the scalp that is located anterior to the auricle. So these are the four branches that give sensory innervations to the scalp. And you see that as they emerge, they part along the anterior region of the scalp, specifically the region that is located anterior to the auricle. And this is where they tend to give off sensory innervations to this region. Then going behind the auricle, another set of 4 nerves will be emerging from the cervical spinal nerves. So let's write on to unfold the branches that emerge to supply the posterior region of the scalp, the region of the scalp that is located behind the auricle. So going to the sensory innervation of the posterior region, we have 4 branches, and these branches are from the cervical spinal nerves, and they are limited to just the 2nd and the 3rd cervical spinal nerves. So if you look at this image here, this is where we have the cervical vertebrae highlighted here, and we have the cervical spinal nerves, of course, emerging and passing through the intervertebral foramen. And this is what is highlighted here in black. You have another cervical spinal nerve here emerging, also highlighted here in black. We say that the cervical spinal nerves are limited to just the 2nd and the 3rd cervical spinal nerve. This is the 1st cervical spinal nerve. This is not involved in giving sensory innervation to the region of the scalp that is located behind the auricle. So it is just the C2 and C3 cervical spinal nerves that are seen to give sensory innervation to the region of the scalp that is located behind the auricle. In trying to establish the different branches that emerge, we know that these spinal nerves has 2 rami. We have the ventral ramus that is highlighted in blue, and we have dorsal ramus that is highlighted in red. So each of the spinal nerves, we have a ventral ramus and also a dorsal ramus. So if you go to the 2nd cervical spinal nerve here that is highlighted in black, you see that it has a ventral ramus, which is highlighted in blue. It also has a dorsal ramus. Then going to the 3rd cervical spinal nerve, we have a ventral ramus that is also highlighted in blue. Then we have a dorsal ramus that is also highlighted in red. And that is how it goes down along the spinal nerve. So they always see to have 2 divisions. They have the anterior division and also the posterior division. The anterior division is referred to the ventral ramus, while the posterior division is referred to as the dorsal ramus. So the branches that will be supplying the region of the scalp that is located behind the auricle are from the 2 divisions of the cervical spinal nerves. And remember, we already highlighted that they are limited to just the C2 and the C3 cervical spinal nerves, while we have other spinal nerves within that tract. So let's see how these branches emerge. The first branch is the great auricular nerve. The great auricular nerve will emerge from the anterior rami of the C2 and C3 cervical spinal nerves. This is where we have the cervical spinal nerves here highlighted in black. We have the C2 here and we have the C3 here. And remember, we have the ventral ramus here that is highlighted in blue and a dorsal ramus that is highlighted in red. And we also have a ventral ramus that is highlighted in blue and also a dorsal ramus that is highlighted in red. This is the kind of configuration that the spinal nerves are seen to present with as they go down the tract. So the great auricular nerve will emerge from the anterior rami of C2 and C3. So this is the anterior ramus of the 2nd cervical spinal nerve, and this is the anterior ramus of the 3rd cervical spinal nerve. So these 2 branches will give off the great auricular nerve, and this is what is presented in this image. And you see them emerging and parting up to give innervation to the region behind the auricle. And they supply specifically the skin that is located posterior to the auricle. So this is where we have the ear. This is the auricle. So it supplies the skin just behind the auricle. And of course, they emerge from the anterior rami of the 2nd and the 3rd cervical spinal nerve. This is the anterior rami here highlighted in blue for both C2 and C3. And you see that the great auricular nerve emerging from these 2 anterior rami, parting up and supplying the skin of the posterior region of the scalp. Then the 2nd branch is the lesser occipital nerve. The lesser occipital nerve is a branch from the anterior ramus of the 2nd cervical spinal nerve. This is where we have the 2nd cervical spinal nerve, and this is where we have the ventral ramus. This is the dorsal ramus. So from the ventral ramus of the 2nd spinal nerve is where we have the emergence of the lesser occipital nerve. And this lesser occipital nerve will part up, and you see it's supplying the posterior region of the scalp just after the great auricular nerve. So you have the great auricular nerve here. Then after it, you have the region of the scalp that is supplied by the lesser occipital nerve. Then the next branch is the greater occipital nerve. The greater occipital nerve is seen to emerge from the posterior ramus of the second cervical spinal nerve. This is where we have the second cervical spinal nerve. This is the ventral ramus. This is the dorsal ramus. So it is from the dorsal or the posterior ramus of the second cervical spinal nerve that we have the emergence of the greater occipital nerve. And this is what is highlighted here in dotted green. And you see it parting up to supply the posterior or the occipital region of the scalp. So you see it's giving sensory innervation to the posterior region of the scalp. And the last one is the third occipital nerve. The third occipital nerve is a branch from posterior ramus of the third cervical spinal nerve. This is the third cervical spinal nerve. This is the ventral ramus. This is the dorsal ramus. The ventral ramus here is highlighted in blue, and the dorsal ramus here is highlighted in red. So it is from the dorsal ramus here that is highlighted in red that we have the emergence of the third occipital nerve. And this is what is highlighted here in purple. And you see it's supplying the suboccipital region. So you see the skin around the suboccipital region that is being supplied by the third occipital nerve. And this is the pattern by which they are arranged. You can see that these four branches supplying the region of the scalp that is located behind the auricle are branches from the cervical spinal nerve. But of course, they are limited to the second and the third cervical spinal nerve. So you have these four branches emerging and supplying the posterior region of the scalp. Then going to the second class of innervation, which is the motor innervation. We said the motor innervation is supplied by branches from the facial nerve, which of course is the seventh cranial nerve. So we have different branches from the facial nerve that are seen to give motor innervations to the scalp, and also using the auricle as a landmark. So we have a region of the scalp anterior to the auricle, and we also have a region of the scalp that is located behind the auricle. These two regions are supplied by different branches from the facial nerve. So for the anterior region, we have the temporal branch of the facial nerve. This is where we have the facial nerve here highlighted in black. So we have the temporal branch here highlighted in dotted red. And it's seen to give the motor innervations to the anterior region of the scalp that is located anterior to the auricle. Then the motor innervation of the region of the scalp that is located behind the auricle is supplied by the posterior auricular branch. So we have the posterior auricular nerve here emerging also from the facial nerve, but of course supplying the posterior region of the scalp. So you see these two branches, the temporal branch and also the posterior auricular branch emerging from the facial nerve. And of course, this is seen to give the motor innervations of the scalp. So thanks for watching this video. Let's continue to stay glued to this channel.